I have to say, I love Christmas horror. So the fact that yours is set around Christmas, we can always use more Christmas horror, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, like, what are some of your favorite Christmas horror movies?
I mean, it's simple. Black Christmas was so like amazingly inspiring. The first time I saw it, I loved it. But in prepping for this movie, I knew I kind of was going to do a thriller slasher type of thing. And as I went back to the well and started researching, I revisited Black Christmas and was just like, this is such a perfect touch point. And it kind of does all the things that interest me in movies where it's both a really entertaining, exciting kind of ride, but then it also has this huge social dilemma in the background, with
Yeah,
post Roe v. Wade and this woman's sort of like her coming of age is deciding that she is going to go through with this abortion and how much the physical stuff of like these weird men trying to infiltrate this warm and safe hive for these women. Like, I don't know. It just like it worked so well for me in this moment. And that was like a huge like mission statement for me. So Black Christmas, of course, love Gremlins.
yeah.
Um, what else would be up there, do you think?
I like Christmas Evil. I don't know if you like that.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I have not seen that one.
it's good. It's a better version of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I don't really like the original of that movie, but Christmas Evil I think does it better.
That's
Um,
cool. I'm gonna write
so
that down because I appreciate Silent Night, Deadly Night, but
yeah,
yeah, it's not really up there. They're remaking that, right?
they did. Yeah,
They
yeah,
did remake it.
yeah. I actually like it a lot. So
The remake.
yeah, the remake is really
Cool.
good.
Um,
Has Rowan Campbell? He did Halloween Ends.
oh,
He plays Billy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you
Yeah,
like Halloween Ends?
I liked it because it was different.
Same.
Because like at that point, all through Halloween Kills, it was like always trying to recreate like the original or just it felt like a carbon copy of each other. And like the fact that Ends did something so ballsy, um, yeah, I really loved it. Like I know a lot of people hate it,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's pretty cool. Like I think it's only gaining more fandom. I was so into it and like even from the get-go with like this super basic title treatment at the beginning with like
yes,
really basic text, I was like, something about this seems like it's gonna, you know,
yeah.
really work for me. I loved it. But it's so weird. It's such a swing.
And that text is actually the same text for Halloween 3.
Yes,
Right?
right?
Yeah, it's the
Like
same color, it's the same like font and everything, which is kind
yeah,
of
so it's like
cool. Yeah,
it's so cool. They're
yeah,
doing this, they are like referencing and kind of remaking the oddity of part three, but in keeping with that mission, they're like, yep, and then our part three is going to be totally out there as well. It can't be compared to anything else.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I have to talk about Sandy because I felt that she kind of falls in line with whatever happened to Baby Jane, Misery, kind of that
Yeah.
kind of woman. So I'm kind of curious what you pulled from for her.
Misery was definitely a touch point. Um, Norman Bates in Psycho, like the sort of like when you look at something, I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but if you saw Leatherface in real life, you would be like, run. Whereas what Norman Bates is doing in Psycho, it's like I love that aspect of he's inviting and he's sort of non-threatening from a certain point of view,
Yeah,
but then there is this kind of inherent evil lurking underneath, but like it's almost like he's fighting against it, and it sort of kind of uh reveals itself as such in like the sequels to Psycho, where it's like he's very much under the control of something else, or the damage has already been done. And so with Sandy in this, I really wanted her to be this person that like, if she wasn't in her, if she was a 5-year-old child and was running around having played in the playground and was kind of dirty and had grass stains, it would be like adorable, and
Yeah.
you would want to help kind of facilitate that world for this child to feel like they can run through yards and they can talk to all the neighbors. But just the twist that, oh, she's a full grown adult, it's sort of like this contrast and
Mhm.
like incongruent sort of aspect to her, So Norman Bates, Kathy Bates in Misery. I can't her character name escapes me.
Um,
Um,
oh my God. Annie.
Annie, yes. Um, and then simple things like even the costume, I was trying to create, like, use the rules for Michael Myers where you create this thing that is almost monolithic and kind of pure in its design. Um, Let me see here. Interrupted. Some updates could not be installed because Zoom interrupted restart. That's okay. Anyway, um, but then, like, in keeping with that idea of like it's broad daylight, the evil is so obvious, and we're just kind of looking past it. Instead of giving her, like with Michael Myers, he kind of has this drab industrial color scheme that makes it easy for him to blend in.
Yeah.
I wanted Sandy to be the polar opposite of that, where you see her hiding in shots because she's so clearly visible, and yet all the characters seem to just be kind of ignoring this obvious evil that's in the streets.
Right.
Um, so those were kind of some of the, like, yeah, Michael Myers, Annie, and then probably Norman Bates.
Did you ever have to like pull back on her? Like maybe you went too far, or like you had to like pull back on her, you know?
Yeah, I suppose so, but never any. Trying to think of specific examples. It was usually just she had the character down so well to the point that when we're filming, all I'm doing is just oscillating some of my perception of tension in her eyes, which is very basic, actor direction type thing. Where one in particular that just jumps out at me is when we first meet her in the front yard, and she and Sarah are talking to each other, and she kind of starts staring at her and going quiet and like almost like tractor beam hypnosis with her eyes. It's so subtle, like her little breaths and the way her eyes are fluttering, like it. I was just sitting there behind, like right by the camera. I'm right next to her, and I would just say, like, okay, now what if she's 50 yards away? What does that do to your gaze, And okay, what if now you're looking at somebody that you are like sexually interested in? What if you're looking at somebody who's an amazing athlete, and just giving these little like things for her to think about because we're up so close. And Sandy, albeit very large and sort of cartoonish, for my money, I think it's all in her eyes. And so if I just gave her some kind of strange actor exercises while she's in it, you would see these little micro adjustments that then we could dial in on the edit. So it wasn't so much of like, whoops, that went too far. It was more that like she was loaded for bear, and then I could just kind of, tweak the knobs here and there and kind of get
Yeah.
her, just give me a variety because as you know, like horror films, like comedies, are all about rhythm and like kind of the music that you're creating for to build to these moments of tension. So she just came so prepared that I could sit there almost like a scientist and just sort of tweak the knobs across the board. It was really like one of the most rewarding director experiences I've ever had with an actor.
I wonder if Sarah wouldn't have gone through that had she just accepted Sandy's cookies.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, yeah, you could argue that that's why nothing like this has ever happened before because everyone in this town is pretty glazed over. Even the Rick character, the pizza delivery guy, he's presumably gotten her cookies every year. and they're all just like, okay, she's just the local weirdo. And that is hopefully where the movie sort of earns its moment, is that once you introduce a character that, you know, isn't accepting of the status quo, isn't accepting of playing her role in this society, and she wants to be her own individual, only then does the chaos fully unravel and boil over, into our crazy third act.
I think one of the most shocking moments is when she picks up the cinder block and like throws it off the roof.
Yes.
At first I wasn't because she's at a distance. I was like, what is she doing up there? And then when you see what she has, it's like, oh, okay.
Yes.
That's a really cool
Yes.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's again, that part of that is mixing that kind of uh how would you describe it? Like just like that childlike fun, she's playing on her playground, and then how quickly it can become violent. Like at first it is, every time we screen the movie, like people kind of bust out laughing for the first half of that shot, and then everybody like gasps at the last half of the shot.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
that's the
Yeah.
duality of the movie, right? And that moment almost happens smack dab in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of Sarah, I like so often in horror movies you get like a hint of like someone's backstory, but
Mhm.
here you like really like give Haley a lot of like meat to get into, and like the layers that she shows um, is really captivating, actually.
Yeah. I like, you know, I like the marriage of reality and spectacle, and how you earn that marriage or that relationship, right? Like I think movies kind of like there's an interesting challenge where you try to strive for realism and to justify these like thrilling sort of crazy things that you would never see in real life. And so in keeping with that philosophy and that challenge, even when I'm writing, it's like what these characters are doing have to, like, one thing has to lead to the next. No false moves. I hate when characters just turn stupid all of a sudden so that we can get to the next cool scene. And so because of that, it like requires you to stick with the main character to really justify why she finds herself in this predicament. But then also, practically speaking, it gives the actors something really firm to hold on to. Because I think the more you can set an actor up to like truly connect with the material and play it as if it is really happening to them, the more you do that, the more humanity kind of like bubbles to the surface in what is otherwise sort of just a garden variety slasher film that, it does. We're already getting some like rough reviews where people are like, well, it's kind of like a lot of other slasher films. And I'm like, well, that's the point. Like, I want it to be similar to this lineage of American slasher films, but only in the way that Haley can perform it, only in the way that Kelsey can perform it. And these women are modern day women, 21st century. They're not uh, the women in Black Christmas, or they're not Norman Bates in Psycho. They are of their moment. And I think like, with this really familiar structure, you get like a really unique and specific original human at the core of it that doesn't exist in any of these other movies that I'm stealing from, you
Yeah.
know.
So what was the like what ignited the story for you? Like how did you get this idea and how it came together in the first stages?
Well, practically it came together out of raising money for a different movie and trying to kind of go a whole different route with the script. And that kind of hit a fork in the road, and we had enough money raised for a small, low to the ground, minimalist type of movie that really relies on actors versus giant locations or giant set pieces. And so, with that mission in mind, I then went back to the well, as it were, and I had this concept of a slasher film of kind of just like suburbia, almost like what would a David Lynch movie feel like, a David Lynch slasher feel like. And I started kind of thinking like, well, what am I afraid of? What is some kind of oppression that I'm feeling every day? And honestly, it's just I think everybody knows what I'm talking about when we say that the last 10 years or so in this country have been upside down insofar as like we can't even trust our neighbors anymore. We go to the grocery store and we size up everybody like, if you see somebody down the aisle with a red hat and white letters on it, you kind of stop and think like, do I want to keep going down this aisle? Like, you
Yeah,
know, these really insane kind of like things that we have to think about now in what are supposed to be comfortable and safe environments, and sort of the hypocrisy that we all sort of live under that like, you know, oh, the terror and the horrors of evil are out in the woods or they're out in the mountains or they are, in some backwater farmhouse or something. And it's like, no, I mean, it's like right outside in broad daylight. And we're all trying so desperately, not all of us, but I think too many of us are trying to pretend like our streets are not terrifying right now. And our safe spaces have not been encroached upon by grifters and fascists. And so that's kind of the like emotional drive for me to like otherwise do this drama play with these characters and this monster at the center of it. For me, it's like what is something that I will feel strong about showing up to every day for, what ends up being 2 to 3 years of your time. These movies, you live with them for so long and you have to be able to defend them and talk about them. And,
yeah,
so I always try to embed them with something that really does concern me in a deep way so that I'm defending something worthwhile and not just another piece of content that's going to, end up on a streaming platform or whatever.
right. So is that why it's American Dollhouse, the title?
Yeah, I think so. My first movie was like pretty politically overt. Like you kind of have to watch it with your own thoughts and feelings on your sleeve. And I just didn't want to do that again this time. A lot of that aspect of my interest of like social studies and like social politics sort of it's in there, but I didn't want it to be overt. And I was just originally calling it Dollhouse because I knew it was going to have this dollhouse thing, but we didn't really know what the title was. And it occurred to me when I was talking about Kelsey, who plays Sandy, I was describing the character as she's this all-American girl. She's apple pie, blue eyes, blonde hair, like Norman Rockwell's dream. But like, what is the nightmare version of the American girl? And then like as I said that, it was just kind of like, oh, there's the title, American Dollhouse.
Okay.
Because like the flag in the front yard and the dollhouse components were in the script. Um, but then like that title emerged out of like talking about who Kelsey is to me in the context of this movie and like kind of what I was trying to do, that like duality of she's this 4th of July sort of type of woman that is actually like kind of forged out of a nightmare.
Yeah. I love the miniature. What is the like important like why was that important to show?
Hmm.
Or is it just kind of look more of like a cool like kind of like set piece kind of thing?
It's kind of that because like I can get like overly uh prescriptive with my like intentions and my shots, and I can kind of like constrict the creative process too much if I'm not careful. And so to that, I try to allow as much dreaming and kind of raw inspiration, or really lean on my collaborators to redefine the script for me and not be so like militant about my vision. And so the whole framing device and chapter breaks with this dollhouse really came from a dream. But then when I was investigating it and making sure that like, does that work? Is this false? As you start to think about it, it does really make sense with the story, I think, given that Sarah is this person who's everyone is trying to fit inside of a box. Everyone's trying to uh, literally redress her, but also figuratively redress her into a model citizen.
Yeah.
And so as you start to kind of think about that, it almost does feel like she is trapped inside of someone else's plaything and like someone else's stage. And then when I found that dollhouse, the way it looked,
Hmm.
how much it matched our location that we shot at, it just seemed like, again, like don't overthink it. Just like that is it, and it's giving you, it's jumping out at you. It wants to be filmed. So I didn't try to overthink it too much. And then once you put cameras on it and you start playing around, it's like
Yeah.
that's like the fun, magical part, you know?
So in terms of your shot list and like how did what you envisioned, how did that change once you got on set?
Well, yeah, so we go in like hyper prepared because of the, we want to like use our time as wisely as possible. So my cinematographer Taylor and I are very ready, and we almost have this thing pre-edited in our heads so that when we arrive on set, we can relax and know that we've got this really strong thing to fall back on. But when we get into the moment, we're like, what is speaking to us right now? What is the best angle? And once Haley is in front of the camera and she's moving around and she's bringing her ideas to the table, then we start to like rethink our shot structuring because once you have your philosophy down or your language, your visual language, and it's consistent throughout the whole plan, then you can kind of trust your like from the hip decisions on the day, and like if you're defying your shot language or not. And so to answer the question, like we kind of tried to loosen up as much as we could once we were shooting because that's when everybody is the most focused, and that's when your actors are bringing all of their like most their strongest ideas. So like don't let the shot list get in the way of that kind of stuff that is only going to be captured on that day in that moment by that person. Um, so there's a dual approach to it. Like we were throwing out brand new ideas and breaking our rules all throughout just because we were following what we perceived to be the spirit of the movie, even though you can't really touch it, you can't really see it, but we're all like feeling it, and letting that be the guiding principle once all the gear is set up and the your compatriots are with you.
Yeah. So I'm kind of as an you mentioned getting rough reviews. So like as an indie filmmaker, like what how do you kind of like distance yourself from reviews and like yeah, like what is your experience with reviews?
Well, my first movie was like spicy review experience, and I had like never gone through something like that before because it was so like politically hot. I got some extreme perspectives and like psychotic perspectives and takes, and then some people who totally understood what we were trying to say and kind of agreed with maybe not that the movie's trying to like prescribe a perspective on life or like tell you how to think, but they could see what we were endeavoring to do and the empathy for uh, this sort of tragic rabbit hole that all these people find themselves falling down to this conspiracy theorist rabbit hole,
Yeah.
trying to empathize with it from a dramatic point of view. Um, so with that experience, and now with this movie, it doesn't bother me. Sometimes I agree with the critiques. Uh, a lot of times I get a kick out of it, and it's kind of like funny to me. Um, but it's all part of it, like it's movies aren't supposed to be for everybody. Like what I would be really worried about is if nobody had an opinion and if people were just like, yeah, that works. That's a movie. Moving on. But it seems to be some people really, really connect with it and really like it, and they kind of see what we're trying to say with the form and with the genre and the conventions and tropes of the genre. And they see it as this really interesting vehicle to encapsulate these modern ideas.
Yeah.
And then other people see that and they're like, well, it's just like movies X, Y, and Z, therefore it's not good. And if that's what they're looking for in a movie, is they want to see a completely brand new shot structure or scene structure or dramatic language, then maybe they're not going to get that in a movie that is trying to intentionally model itself off of things like Psycho or Peeping Tom or Black Christmas. Uh, so that's it's just all interesting to me. It all feeds into the Hopper. There's a lot about filmmaking that seems like a means to an end or a necessary evil,
Yeah.
and I think that is you're wasting the fruit that comes out of this endeavor if you don't engage with it or just embrace it as part of the artistic expression. Um, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like it's all kind of like part of the cultural and community spirit of the movie. I think our first review out the gate was like 20 minutes after the credits rolled at South by Southwest. We had like a pretty mean-spirited review from RogerEbert.com,
Oh, geez.
and and our team was kind of like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "No, no, no, guys! Like, we're here. We've arrived. Like
Yeah.
we are in the conversation, and
Exactly.
you know, it's." uh, it's kind of cool, and I see it as part of the broader wave that we're all surfing with what movies mean to us, and how they play in our lives and in our conversations in ways that a lot of other art forms don't. So I take it all kind of roll with the punches, as it were.
I always say that a horror film is better if it takes big swings, either good or bad, rather than to be boring.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. 100%. Especially nowadays with how many slashers there are, how many horror films they are. It's like
yes.
just do something. And for me, where my heart was like telling this, like hopefully introducing a new style of final girl and a new style of slasher that I have never seen before. And again, like it's only something that Kelsey Pribilski could do.
Yeah.
It's only something that Haley Loren could do. And like that to me, that's the newness. That's what is original about the movie and worth capturing and asking people to spend their time with.
Yeah. I saw an early, before I even saw the film, I saw someone on Instagram. I said, I can't wait for people to meet Sandy. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. What is it about Sandy? And then like now it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty special, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel very proud of myself that I could conjure that character, but then like there's only so much I can do before you hand it over to a performer. And what Kelsey brought to it was like I said earlier, it's one of the most rewarding actor director experiences I've ever had. Um, it's she really went somewhere. She really committed. There's a version of this movie that could be kind of boring or sort of rote.
Mhm.
But these actors, like, they treated it like life and death, and they found the true humanity in these characters, which is hard, eerie to say about Sandy because, like, she is very inhuman and very
Yeah.
cartoonish at times, but like, boy, does it hypnotize you, and I think it really works, you know.
Yeah. Okay, just to kind of wrap up here, you obviously premiered at South by Southwest. So because festivals are for, finding a distributor. So like, have you gotten any interest already for this? I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah,
Okay.
which is fun, and affirming and reassuring and kind of whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting all sorts of like various offers because there's 1,000 ways to distribute a movie now, and so we're just kind of weighing our options. We're looking for who is going to shepherd this movie the best and who's going to get it to audiences. Because as much of this is a personal expression and sort of, something that I have to feel good about from the get-go. Ultimately, I want audiences to find this movie, and I want and again, that's part of it for me is like
Yeah.
it's not just about making a movie, it's about trying to communicate to audiences and then give them something to talk about. And it sort of is all part of the same swirl and the vortex of this like strange medium. So I really want it to get out in a big way, and I'm hoping we can find something for even if it's a small theatrical run, because this movie plays so well in a theater with
I bet it
people.
would be like, yeah, like with an audience. I can't imagine.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Because it's not really like it's not a super mean, alienating movie. There is kind of a bubblegum quality to it that does ask you to be like, yeah, get some popcorn and get scared and kind of think about some deep, dark things, but you're in the comfort of a movie theater or in front of your TV. It's like, it's a safe place to sort of ruminate on some dark ideas, but it's not without its kind of charm, and
Right.
it's small, small, subtle wink to the audience.
Yeah. Do you plan to take it to more festivals, or are you just kind of like waiting to see? Or
Yeah, you wait, I mean, like, there's a world where, like, if we got, like, the right distribution offer today and they want to put it out for Christmas later this year, it might be hard to show it at festivals after that, right? But we keep submitting and we're getting some invites to others, and we're just going to keep, touring the movie and showing it again with that desire to like get people to see this thing and meet Sandy. Uh, but like each festival is an opportunity to find uh, the right relationship with a distributor.
yeah,
Um, so I don't know. It could come any time now, but we're submitted to a couple, like a dozen or so film festivals for the rest of the year and beyond, and so we'll see what happens.
yeah,
Um, yeah, we've got Overlook coming up in New Orleans, which will be really fun. And then we'll like kind of wait and see what happens after that. There's some other cool genre festivals that we love, and the ones that found my first movie we'd love to come back to, and
yeah.
you know,
Cool.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting, and I love that Black Christmas was a reference for you because that's like my second favorite horror movie ever.
yeah,
So,
hell yeah, it's pretty amazing. What's your first, if you don't mind me?
Cat People, 1942. So,
Yeah, great. That's great. I love cat people. Do you like the Paul Schrader one, or are you kind of
I like parts of it. I like that it's more sexual, like
yeah,
because it's there, and I like that we get to see the transformations.
yes,
Like into
yeah,
the cat. So
yeah,
I'm not keen on like the incestual thing of it. Uh,
sure.
but I mean the performances are great. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm like a low key obsessed with Paul Schrader, and so I like cat people like has a special place in my heart, even though it's a little it's not his best movie. I'll say that.
yeah. For sure.
Yeah, this
Cool.
has been awesome. I appreciate it, and I hope you had a good time watching the movie.
I did. And you have a fantastic festival.
Yeah, with Overlook, or what
Oh,
do you mean?
Overlook. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Really looking forward to that, and I
You've
think those
never been?
audiences. No, no, this will be my first time and first time in New Orleans.